What up, guys and girls? I hope you're having an awesome weekend wherever in the world that you are from. I know I am. It's actually been warm, which here in Idaho, this time of year is very hit or miss. Thankfully, we're having a hit. Today is in the 80 degrees. That's, of course, I'm in the United States, so we're still on Fahrenheit. I don't know what that would equate to Celsius, but I'm sure someone smarter than me that knows that quick conversion can figure out what that would be for you if you live outside of the US. I know we're the only country that's still rolling with the Fahrenheit, but anyway, in today's video, we are going to go over what we think's possible for the SPX tomorrow, which of course will drag Bitcoin one direction or another. As of the time that I'm making this video, which I tried to start earlier, but I just keep getting alerts for trades, and it's hard to turn that away when you have alerts popping up. But at any rate, we're going to look and see what we think the Bitcoin price might do over the next 24 to 48 hours, which obviously will set the tone for what it's going to do this following week. And if you guys are liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. It's TAwithMMK. It's TAwithMMK. We're going to start out today's video looking at a chart or a website that I look at every single night before I go to bed and every single morning. I set an alarm. It's not something I've discussed on my channel before, but we all know that Bitcoin is highly correlated with the traditional stock markets. So I will leave a link in the description for this website. It's just cnn.com. /business, /markets, /pre-markets. But anyway, the link will be in the description. But what I'm looking for here is to give myself somewhat of an edge and have an idea of what the stock markets may do to start the day, or in this case, start the week, right? And so I'm looking over here at the U.S. stock futures, and I'm seeing green. Now, green means it's obviously bullish. Now, the more green, the better. If it's just barely green, that doesn't necessarily give you much of an edge. But what I really just am looking for is it green or red? And especially is all three green or red. Usually they all follow each other for the most part. But you got Dow futures over here, plus 89 green, the S&P 500 futures, plus 15.75, and the NASDAQ plus 81.25. So just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of kind of how I start every day when it comes to getting an idea of what I think the Bitcoin price will do. Especially if you're taking short-term trades, which I don't talk a lot about on my channel, but I will leave a link in the description for my Telegram group that I started, so you can join our community. It's completely free. And on there, of course, I drop charts all day long discussing short-term trade ideas and, what I think Bitcoin's going to do over the next few hours to, days and things of that nature. It's just a little harder to do that on a YouTube channel because, depending on when people actually watch your video, it just may not be, relevant anymore at that point. So no point really discussing super short-term time frame moves out of Bitcoin. But at any rate, I'll leave that link in the description, and let's move over to the SPX chart. All right, so this is the 4-hour chart for the S&P 500 or the SPX. And in our last video or 2 videos ago, we discussed kind of what price action was doing as far as this red zone. It had closed, I want to say the Thursday of last week, it closed at this red resistance. I said what I wanted to see is for it to break through that. Because back here, it was resistance, rejection, resistance, rejection. And on Friday, as the markets closed, we did have a little pump up to about here, and that's where it closed. So trying to get an edge, I'm looking at the green numbers there on that CNN.com website, right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, stocks could potentially open somewhat bullish to start tomorrow, but we're still at resistance, or at least close to it. So you can see back here, we had this little double bottom after it flipped this area to support, double bottom, push higher. And then back here, it was double bottoming, but lost and bearishly retested it, right? So that's a zone of importance. It also has this potential trend line area where you had a low, a lower low, lower low. That may act as resistance as well. So if we're trying to get an edge, we don't have a whole lot. What I mean by that is, should open up green if it stays that way. I'll check it in the morning. Well, what does that tell me? Well, that people that are, the big time traders or institutions that are planning on opening up their week, I think a lot of people will think, okay, we could make one little push higher by 1% or 2% to that resistance, and then at that point, does it stay bullish or does it get rejected? What I think is most likely is that we start green, we go bullish for maybe 30 minutes, and then we get a little pullback. The question is, do we get a higher low than here? Can we flip this zone as support like we were able to do back here where it flipped and then went on a run? Can we come back down here somewhere and then make another run up here? The big key over the course of this next few days is if we want to remain bullish on stocks, which of course will then mean Bitcoin, which of course will then mean your altcoins, we need to break back into this pattern, which is above this orange line of resistance at about 4,062 to 3-ish, right? We need to break above that, retest, and flip that as support. That way we can start to trend higher and test some of these upper levels of resistance, right? So I'll be watching tomorrow very closely. I'll be keeping everyone updated on Telegram that's in my group. Obviously, Twitter, I'll drop a few things, as well as I'll obviously discuss it in tomorrow's video. But that's what I'm looking for right now. I don't think we have a big edge at the moment, unfortunately. I do think we have a small edge if you want to make a short-term trade in the morning that will probably get a little bit of an upside to at least test this resistance. Now, if it breaks through it, that's a whole different story. But what I would be looking for if it doesn't, I wouldn't necessarily suddenly flip a bearish and start shorting everything. I would just be looking to see if when it retraces, can it bounce off this blue box or even maybe slightly sooner to essentially put in a higher low. So you had this low. You know, when we broke back up into this, can we come back down and make this our next higher low? Now, I also wanted to quickly, again today, discuss a little bit of my strategy that's been going on within my trading group. Now, again, this is kind of something that I can't put on YouTube videos, you know, very easily as far as short-term ideas go, because it's just not going to be pertinent anymore or, you know, relevant by the time people see the video, right? But I want to kind of show you an insight of what my mindset is when I'm making some of these short-term trades. Now, we had some altcoin setups that we've been watching, and I posted this chart that basically showed that Bitcoin was essentially in this big, you know, you call this an inverse head and shoulders, or if you just look at the right side of it, the key was that it was putting in, you know, a low and a higher low. But overall, this was still in a downtrend. I pointed out a couple things. I said, hey, the volume during this pullback, or consolidation, if you will, is declining, which just means in my eyes, or, you know, from a trader standpoint, that the bears are losing momentum, essentially. The strength of the move could potentially be reversing. You know, if you see price action going down like it is here, but volume was increasing, I guess you can't see that because my head's in the way, so you'll just have to trust me. Maybe I could show it more like right here, but you could see that the volume was going up as this is going down. That means that the strength, that means the move has a lot of strength. So it's, you know, potentially going to stay going that direction. And then look, so it went all the way up to here, and that came all the way down to here. But then from that point, you know, it's just the overall move, though, is starting to lose strength. So that was kind of some clues for some potential upside ideas. I then zoomed in to kind of give the guys in the group kind of an insight of how I think on short-term time frames as far as trying to nail entry on altcoins. I posted this chart where I was basically saying, hey, this is the 1-minute chart, by the way. There's no way you could trade, or you shouldn't be trading or spending too much time staring at these charts when you're zoomed in this far. But this was just me showing them kind of how I think as far as I'm looking at Bitcoin at that resistance. It was below 31K, about 30,700-ish, right? And I'm telling them, you know, if it's going to break that 30,800 or 31,000, which it was looking like it could when you're zoomed out, it'd been consolidating below there. The strength of the downside move was obviously declining, so there was already clues on the higher time frames that we could see a little pump, you know? So then I'm in the 1 minute looking closely, right? And I see that we kind of have this high up here. We had a low. This was a higher high, right? So then I'm looking down here, and I just can it put in a higher low, because I guess I can't spell, but I put in a hugger low, low, or a double bottom, right? Then I fast forwarded a little bit, and I updated the chart and said, okay, now you kind of had this rounded bottom consolidation, broke up. This is a little falling wedge. It's starting to give us clues of a potential double bottom, right? Fast forward a little bit later, then I put okay. Now we have this chart where it put in, you know, rounded bottom. So basically a falling wedge broke out, falling wedge broke out. And this also goes back to the idea of a video I made 4 or 5 days back or a week back where I was talking about mirror patterns or patterns repeating themselves. You see this on every time frame. So here's a 1 minute chart where essentially you just had a big rounded bottom, which, you know, once again was a falling wedge that broke out, became a small double bottom over here, pushed higher, right? Started another falling wedge, broke out, small double bottom, started to push higher. And the last thing I think I put was actually in a conversation with another guy over here where I was just showing him essentially, okay, here you go. Yeah, that was just me updating him kind of on that. And if you go look at the chart now, if we go over here to the Bitcoin, you know, chart that I was looking at, which I want to say is this one. Okay, essentially it did break out, right? There was some volume came in down here on the 1 minute, nothing crazy. We're not saying this is some giant breakout. This is the 1 minute chart after all, but it broke out. And then I had mentioned to him in that chat, hey, what we're looking for now is it just to do the whole thing all over again, but try to flip, you know, maybe this green area as support. And essentially that's what it's trying to do right now. It doesn't mean that it will, you know, it could roll over at any time, but you use this as clues to kind of nail your entries on altcoins. And now I'm going to show you a couple of charts that I posted in a group to do with some altcoins. Now we're going to hop over to this Gala 3L. This is a 3x leverage token that is on KuCoin. It just basically means that you're using 30% leverage. So for every 1% that it goes up, you're making 3%, and vice versa. Obviously, if it goes down 1%, you're losing 3%. So these are higher risk, higher reward tokens. But this was the chart that I was posting for Gala to potentially go up. I just mentioned in group, it was a large inverse head and shoulders. You kind of had this rounded bottom consolidation right below this resistance. And this is right as Bitcoin was showing signs of breaking 31K, or at least 30,800. So I just mentioned keep an eye on this coin. And I updated them just a little bit later and said, this one's kind of a key one I want to read to you. So here's the actual picture. This is on the 1 minute chart for Gala. This is what I'll read what I put in group. I said, this is what's known as a bull flag. I'm sure most of you know this. From a statistical standpoint, these more often break to the upside than the downside. I don't know the exact percent. That's not the point. I view these patterns differently. I said I view them as a weighting pattern. What do I mean by a weighting pattern? Well, Bitcoin is at resistance, or at least it was at the time. I said it does look bullish overall, so people that are buying or trading this coin are basically waiting as price action consolidates sideways for the move out of Bitcoin. I said this probably seems obvious, but I thought I'd point it out anyway. So I just said if you're new, keep in mind at the end of the day, 90 or 95% of these patterns that we trade will go the way that Bitcoin lets them go, right? Like it's not very often, there's only a few outlier coins when Bitcoin, you know, takes a dump that actually pump, or vice versa, right? Like usually if the whole market, if Bitcoin's going up, everything is kind of coming up. It's really just a matter of different percentages between coins, right? So I said, always keep that in mind. You can buy at the bottom of a bull flag knowing that statistically it could go your way, but you have to watch Bitcoin for clues as to whether the odds are for or against you. Fast forward just a bit. Here was a chart I posted where I mentioned that it was moving. You can see that there was you can kind of tell where I have these white lines for that 1 minute bull flag that was discussed in the previous segment. The overall resistance zone, I was just mentioning, hey, it's moving above that. Keep an eye on it for a retest, or if you already entered the coin on the bull flag breakout, here's some targets, right? And then last but not least, this was just posted a little while ago where it had broken out, and I had just posted basically saying it's hit my red zone of resistance. You know, if you're not in the trade, be cautious. This is where, you know, I at least believe profits will be taken. I know I took profits on the trade. I had entered it back down here in the green box, and it was about a, you know, 18 to 20% pump from that point, which was a nice little short-term trade. And then just quickly before I finish up today's video, I just want to mention one altcoin that is on my radar as far as, you know, if the SPX were to have the pullback, double bottom, and push higher over the course of this next week. It's RUNE, and the reason it's RUNE is it's a little bit safer bet because it's a mid or even a large cap coin essentially. So you don't have quite the risk that you do on those lower cap coins as far as them pulling 30 or 40% back on you in a day. And it's also flipped on lower time frames anyway, this major zone, right? It was support back here, back here, back here. So it's bounced at the bottom of this zone 3 times, right? Now it wicked below it with the big Bitcoin pullback to 25K, 25 to 26K, but the actual candle still closed up here. And so this whole area is pretty strong support. The top of the zone obviously bounced here. You know, this is where the candles closed back here and here. So I kind of look at this as a strong zone. What I'd be looking for at this point would be a pullback with Bitcoin anywhere between about we'll say 340 and about $3. If you can get anything close to $3, that'd be an amazing entry in my opinion, as long as Bitcoin can, you know, move higher over the course of the next week overall. So that's what I'll have to keep an eye on. Again, I will be giving, you know, more update analysis when I enter the trade, when I exit on my Telegram group. So look for that link in the description to join us over there and be part of our community. I also will keep you guys updated on Twitter. Now, this was the chart that I actually just posted in group. I posted it first yesterday, talking about the breakout of this potential falling wedge that was running out of room at support. That broke higher, retested, right? Broke out, retested, not a lot of volume, but a little bit of volume came in. I mentioned today that we're up about 16, almost 17% on that trade if the guys in group took it. At this point, I just was updating them that if this can break and retest the top or bottom of this red zone, here's some more targets in place. So this is just a zoomed in 15-minute chart, not something obviously you that viewers of my channel should probably be trading, because by the time you watch it, this may have already changed quite a bit. This is just the short-term targets for it. But again, just kind of giving you some further insight into how we're running the group and kind of how I trade on the shorter time frames. And that'll do it for today. If the video went a little long, I apologize. Sometimes I get to rambling, and I never know how long the video is actually going to be until I go to edit it. And some days, I guess I'm just a little more yappy than other days. But if you guys are liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow. It's